So integrative oncology is a really interesting field. So, as we've sort of mentioned about mushrooms being used in Asian medicines for a long time, and so they actually are probably further ahead than in the West in terms of looking at mushrooms for oncology. There was even a period in the 80s in Japan where they were using a particular mushroom as primary chemotherapy because one of the certain active compounds was actually having, an anti-tumor effect. Now mushrooms are something that tend to be used integratively rather than as a standalone, and that would be what Hifas is promoting as well. And that's because even though there is some evidence that mushrooms can actually have an anti-cancer effect, interrupt that whole process of the cell change and tumor development, but actually one of the key things that mushrooms do is this protecting the immune system. And so what they're doing is while someone is having this very challenging treatment, it can actually be supporting the individual in maintaining a certain level of quality of life, in maintaining a certain level of weight, of energy, of managing nausea, of managing immunity, so they're not necessarily catching other things while their immunity is weak from the treatment. They can also help with things like reducing the loss of taste or reducing the loss of hair, and in some cases, because of this improved quality of life, it means that people can finish a course. One of the things that I don't know whether it's so kind of commonly known, but because chemotherapy can be such a debilitating treatment, often people can't complete full courses because of the side effects, because they're finding it so challenging. Whereas using a mushroom product alongside, because it's improving the quality of life, it means that it can support someone in actually finishing a whole course of treatment and getting the full benefit of their primary treatment whilst actually being more comfortable, having a better quality of life, and then supporting with maintaining remission.
It's amazing that these compounds can do that, these mushrooms can do that. And so basically what we're saying is that they can improve efficacy, so they're helping with efficacy of treatment based on research, but also that they're reducing side effects, which of course is a huge problem when it comes to conventional cancer treatments. And of course, if we just think in simple terms, what chemotherapy is doing, it's basically targeting any cell in your body that's quickly dividing. That of course includes cancer cells, but it also includes a lot of healthy cells, your cells in your bone marrow, like your red blood cells, like your white blood cells, so your immune system, cells involved in the hair, hence people losing hair, cells in the gut, hence gut problems. So this is amazing that we've got something here that we can use to make that more targeted and reduce side effects. You also mentioned there with Japan, is that turkey tail you were talking about?
Yeah, that's right. That was turkey tail, also called Coriolis. Yeah.
Coriolis, right. And it's named turkey tail. We can talk a bit more about this too. It's called turkey tail, isn't it? Because of the sort of the lineage that you get, the appearance of the mushroom, it looks literally as such.
Yeah, it actually grows like a fan, and then it has different colours going out, so it actually looks like a fanned turkey tail. Wow. So that's the common name. It's quite bright colours, so yeah.
It's another beautiful one to add to the list.
Yeah.
So in terms of cancer progression, what we know is that there is some evidence to say that it can assist in terms of the sort of the cell cycle that we associate with cancer. What do we know about this at the moment? So there is some evidence to say that it can actually stop tumor progression?
Yeah, I mean, there is, small trials, sort of cell studies, some animal studies, some small human studies. And there's actually, numerous, actually pretty much every step along the pathway from that, stopping the cellular change to stopping or reducing angiogenesis, which is the production of blood vessels so that the tumor can actually feed itself and keep growing, reducing tumor size. What else? There's some evidence also of there's a process that's called programmed cell death, which is when the body actually kills off cells that are damaged. Like in cancer, that's one of the mechanisms that stops working, so these damaged cells can keep growing. There's also evidence that mushrooms can actually switch that back on, so they can amazingly tell the body, this is an unhealthy cell, kill it off. This is a healthy cell, let's make it healthier. So like all of these different stages, there's small evidence that mushrooms actually support each of these steps, and it's some mushrooms will have an effect on all of these things, but a lot of mushrooms, there'll be certain mushrooms that do this or certain mushrooms that do this better in certain tissues of the body. And so ideally in an integrative oncology product, you want one that's a synergistic combination, a blend of different mushrooms. And then and ideally one that's actually targeted towards the specific type of cancer that you have, because there are certain mushrooms that are kind of supportive across the board, and then there are certain mushrooms that have what we call a tropism, which means like an attraction to a specific system or organ in the body. And so then using those specific mushrooms is going to give you an enhanced benefit than just using those ones that have a general benefit.
So just on this, whilst we're on topic, what would your kind of go-to mushrooms be when you're supporting somebody that's got a diagnosis of cancer?
Yeah, so I mean, these days I would use the Hifas combinations, because they've created 5 blends which are targeted to the main types of cancer. And so the key mushrooms that are in all of those blends are something called sun mushroom, or Agaricus blazei moril, reishi, that we've mentioned a couple of times, which is the specific strain is Ganoderma lucidum, and the other is maitake, which is Grifola frondosa. So these are the kind of 3 mushrooms that are key in the blend, and then depending on which condition, there are 2 or 3 other mushrooms added. And this sort of evidence coming back either from people that I've supported or people that practitioners who ask for advice from Hifas and work with Hifas mushrooms, is using those tailored blends is actually really making a difference in supporting people.
That's amazing.
And so, and the other key thing that's really important is mushrooms are what we call dose dependent. And what that means is the worse the condition or the bigger the person, the higher the dose of mushrooms needed to have a therapeutic effect. So when we're working with oncology, then you really need really high doses. And again, from kind of Asian research, people were mostly just using mushroom powders, or some cases extracts, and they were finding that people were having to take kind of 15, 30, extract capsules a day, or 50, 100 whole mushroom powder capsules. And of course, if you've got nausea, if you're taking other medications, that becomes really hard for people to do. And so Hifas decided that they wanted to make a liquid supplement, so that's going to increase ease of use, and it's going to increase, how regularly people are actually taking it. Because again, that regularity of use makes a difference. You want those mushrooms in your system so that you actually get a steady state, of those active compounds. So you're taking it once or twice a day throughout a course of treatment, and then you're going to get the best benefits. And so now, a liquid vial from one of the oncology lines is like the equivalent of 200 or so capsules of just a mushroom powder, or 20 or 30 of a concentrated extract. So again, you're really needing these high doses, but of course you want it in a form that's going to be actually feasible to take and not as expensive as buying hundreds of powder capsules.
Makes perfect sense.